Clubhouse chatter continues. I say with a question in my voice.
That is right. Hey, so we're waiting on Carl. So Carl, when I chatted with Carl last week, this was kind of oh, there he is. Hold on here.
All right, this is Clubhouse chatter.
Hello.
No.
Hey, Carl, how's it going?
You called me already?
I did. Are you ready to talk?
What happened? Yeah, I got a disconnect or something.
Oh, okay. You ready to talk some baseball with us?
Yeah, I'll be fine, you bet.
All right. So, hey, we have Carl Erskine on the phone with us. And first of all, I would like to say hello to a listener in Indiana. Carl knows who this guy is. Jim Denny, who is a firefighter and paramedic in Anderson, Indiana, and is the biggest Carl Erskine fan in Indiana.
A huge fan, yeah.
And so that's what Jim says. I'd like to say hi to Jim. Thanks for watching. And once again, Carl Erskine on the phone. And we just had Jackie Robinson Day last week. And so we took last week off due to Easter. And so we're going to talk about, Carl's time with Jackie, as we always do. And Carl, good morning.
Hey there. Yeah, good to speak to you. And Jackie's Day was a week ago, and I had to pass up a chance to go to L.A. and be there for the unveiling of his beautiful sculpture because it was Easter weekend, and I couldn't be there and be home too, so I had to pass that up. I was sorry about that.
And I know you watched a little bit of it, and they had his children in. They brought David in from Africa, somewhere in Africa. He's a coffee guy now, and so
Tanzania, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
And so it was pretty awesome. It was a beautiful setting, and it was a very it was about time that there's a Jackie Robinson sculpture there at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, he just definitely deserved a statue.
And Jackie Robinson Day means something different to almost everybody. And for me, I get to talk with Carl, and Carl is he's been on the show numerous times, and we love having him on, and it's a history lesson. Mm-hmm. Is the way I look at it. And not only does Carl talk about his friendship with Jackie, but all the other Dodgers as well. As we all know, Carl played with a ton of Hall of Fame players, and I mean it's an impressive list. And Carl was no slouch himself. He was a heck of a pitcher. He has 2 no-hitters to his credit, and
world champion.
Yep, and had a good solid career. Retired, went to coach, and I was telling Joe a little bit about the story of when you retired and you went to Anderson, Indiana to coach at Anderson University, and when you walked in and saw the uniforms. Can you tell him that story real quick?
Yeah, because I never left my hometown of Anderson, Indiana. That's where I was born and raised and went to high school. Married a girl in my high school class. We've been married almost 70 years now in October. But I did return after a lot of travel with baseball. We always had a off-season in Anderson, Indiana. That's a good Midwestern town, about 30 miles from Indianapolis. But, I came home, and in my era, most of us did not go to college. So the other thing that happened to most of us, we didn't have much of a plan after our playing days were over. And so a lot of guys stayed in the game in some capacity. Scouts or coaches, broadcasters. But a lot of guys didn't have anything like me. I did not have anything to fall back on when my playing days were done. And I had to quit age 32, which is relatively young, but I had arm trouble. And so I came back to my hometown of Anderson, Indiana. Now I'm going to live here permanently. So I decided I better go enroll in college because I needed to I was only an average student in high school. I needed to get my head turned around and get ready to try to make a living in a different way. So I was a 32-year-old freshman at Anderson College, and so while I was enrolled there, they came to me and said, "Look, our baseball coach left to take a job in the East. Would you coach 1 year for us so we can search for a permanent coach?" And I said, "Gee, I can do that." And it really wasn't a paid job. You got a little stipend, but you didn't really get a salary. But I had all this baseball in my head because the Dodgers are such a good teaching organization, and I'd been in the organization 14 years, and I saw the things that they taught worked and were really classic. And Mr. Rickey had a lot of influence on that. But anyway, I finally agreed to coach 1 year. So I went over to the gym to look at the uniforms that were hanging there in storage. I got the shock of my life. Lo and behold, the uniform colors were orange and black. Well, tell me about orange and black. The New York Giants, now the San Francisco Giants, are orange and black. And I'll tell you how we felt about orange and black. Duke Snyder was my roommate. And Duke said, we hated the Giants so much, and we hated orange and black so much, we don't even like Halloween. So so I looked at these uniforms, and I thought, I don't think I can do it. I mean, yeah, I could coach, but put that on, I'm not sure. So you know what I did? I took those uniforms home with me, and I took a razor blade, and I took a lot of this brocade that was on there in orange and black. I took it off.
Oh, wow.
So I did surgery on the uniforms before I would put it on.
I love that story. And, working with the Giants, and I totally understand it. I mean, I'm not your typical Giants fan because I don't hate the Dodgers. I like the Dodgers.
Right.
I mean, Carl Erskine, one of my friends, played for him early on. And so, I'm a baseball fan. And so, yeah, there's a lot of dislike. I mean,
well, here's the story, though. The real story is this: there's professional hatred, and that's what we had with the Giants. But I knew a lot of the Giants. Now, I was a good friend with Jim Hearn. I knew a lot of I knew Willie pretty well, and the guy Alvin Dark. These were class guys, and we didn't hate them like real hate.
Right.
Playing with that uniform number. And across the front, and it says Giants. I know they felt the same way about the Dodgers.
Yep.
When we're on the field, almost anything would go head-to-head competition. And most people realize, in my era, we only had 8 teams in the league.
Right.
So we played every other team, all the other 7 teams, 22 times. 11 home, 11 on the road. But in New York, all 22 games were in New York. 11 at the Polo Grounds, 11 at Evans Field. So they try to compare the San Francisco now to the L.A., but they're not in the same city.
Right.
There was nothing like playing head-to-head with this Giant team. It didn't matter what the standings were in the league. When you played a 3-game series with the Giants, either at home or in the Polo Grounds, your manhood was on the line. This was city. This was a war that had been going on before I even got there.
Right.
But,
it was bragging rights for the city.
Of course, yeah.
It was a very intense time playing the Giants. So some of my best memories are playing and winning against the Giants because somehow it was a badge of honor. It didn't matter what the standings were. If you beat the Giants, boy, you walk around the neighborhood the next couple of days. You felt pretty good.
Puff your chest out a little bit, yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Jackie. 70 years. I mean, does it seem like 70 years for you?
Well, the reason it does not is because of guys like you. You call and recall all these memories. You pull up games. You pull up plays. No, it's not like a 70-year-old memory because we've rehashed these happenings over and over. And as time has passed, Jackie has become bigger and bigger and bigger in history.
Oh, absolutely.
When we were playing together, I played with Jackie 9 seasons. And when we were playing together, we were on 1-year contracts. we had to fight to keep our jobs.
Right.
And we were focused so much on our own careers that, yeah, we knew Jackie was facing a lot of heat, and we supported Jackie. The team itself was very, very supportive. And why wouldn't we be? Because this guy was winning games for us. I mean, he was the spark plug. And but to have a known history coming out of all that, no, we didn't recognize the significance. But as time has passed, and you look back and focus on the condition of America in the 40s and earlier, when even in Indiana where I lived, there was a very distinct line between black and white.
Right.
And it was true restaurants, and we had a sign in every restaurant that I ever went into as a kid had a sign, and it said, I even remember this word for word, we reserve the right to we reserve the right to withhold service from anybody. In other words, this sign said, if you're black, don't come in here.
Right.
And that was a condition. So I grew up in a mixed neighborhood, and one of my closest friends to this day is a kid I grew up with in elementary school named Johnny Wilson. He was an athlete himself, a good one, Mr. Basketball in Indiana, later played with the Globetrotters. And he played in the Chicago American Giants in the Negro League. Johnny was a fantastic athlete.
He was a great athlete.
I grew up with Johnny. He's my buddy. We never knew anything about skin color.
Yeah.
So when I played with Jackie, he asked me one day, how come this black and white thing doesn't bother you? And I said, I can give you two words, Johnny Wilson. He's my good buddy. And we didn't have any sense of, we go to the movie on Saturday to watch a cowboy show when we were kids. And Johnny had to sit in the balcony because blacks weren't allowed to sit on the main floor. Well, my buddies and I, we'd sit with Johnny in the balcony. And they didn't think anything about it.
And that's crazy. I mean, we've had Johnny on the show.
Okay.
I mean, great man, and he probably could have played Major League Baseball at some point.
Well, I think Johnny, we played. Yeah, he was a first baseman, and I played with him in high school. Well, he was such a track star in several events. They wouldn't let him play baseball in high school. But I played with him in American Legion baseball in the summertime. And he played first base, and he was an outstanding player. But when they have had tryout camps, Cardinals had a tryout camp one time. Johnny went there, he stole the show. But the guy told him, he said, I know, kid, you can hit, you can run, throw, but we can't sign you. And he was black. That was before Jackie was on the scene. Either.
Right.
But anyway, with Jackie, I'm finally very proud of the fact that what he did virtually alone. Mr. Ricky was his solid support, and Rachel, his sweet wife, intelligent lady, was his biggest critic and his biggest supporter. But Jackie virtually faced this alone, and that's hard to imagine. Trying to play, he had to be the best player on the field, number one, or it wouldn't mean anything that he was in the big leagues.
Right.
So he had to excel, and then he had to do it under pressure. But I found out two things about players. One is some guys are bothered when the fans get on them or the other bench gets on them. Some guys let that get to them. Some guys play better when guys get on them. When the fans boo, and Jackie was the latter.
Right.
When you got on Jackie, when you threw at him, when somebody tagged him hard, when the fans booed him on the road, you know what Jackie did? He'd take it out on the baseball, or on the bases. And he's a guy that could actually get better under pressure. And that's one of the ways he was able to sustain himself when he took all the heat and still hit every year. Of course, he hit over 300, but he also did a lot of good things other than that on the bench. And he was one of my biggest encouragers, Jackie was. He'd come in with the bases loaded to the mound and said, look here, kid, if anybody can get out of this, you can do it. I mean, he was very supportive of me in the years I played with the Dodgers. And I don't think he had anything to do with me coming up from the minors, but I've probably told the story before. I was in Fort Worth, Texas, AA in my second year, and I pitched against the big club when they came and played a preseason game with us. And after the game, I pitched that day. And after the game, Robinson came over to our dugout. I didn't know him. And he asked for me by name. He said, "Where's Erskine?" And I stepped out of the dugout. He shook my hand. He said, "Young man, I hit against you twice today. You're not going to be in this league very long." Well, that was what a boost for a kid, a minor league kid. And so Jackie and I got off to a good start. The middle of that year, I was called to the Dodgers and joined them in Pittsburgh. And Jackie was the first guy to my locker. And he said, "Kid, I told you couldn't miss." So he and I had a good relationship from day one.
No, that's really cool. I mean, to see just growing up in Indiana in a place like that, but for you to have such an open opinion on someone like, in that era, not everyone had that, and I think you probably were both lucky to know each other in that time. He was a fantastic, dynamic player. Not just was he breaking down barriers, racial barriers, but he was a fantastic player. He made his team better. He was fast. He got in the pitcher's head, and I'm sure it was fun pitching to him that day when you were in the minors, huh?
Well, here's the thing with Jack. He defied all the odds, and one of the biggest odds he had was to overcome his own temper. And the guys that played with him in the Negro League, when Mr. Rickey singled him out, they predicted he wouldn't make it because of his temper. And so here's the wisdom of Mr. Rickey. He said, "I can't have a player who's passive. I can't have a guy who's just lukewarm. I got to have a guy that's got fire in his guts, that he wants to punch you right in the face, but he's smart enough and he's controlled enough not to fight. But he's got to have fight in him, or he'll never make it." So how wise is that? If I was going to pick a guy, I'd want to pick a soft personality that would never cause a fight.
Right.
But Mr. Rickey says he'd get killed. He couldn't make it. Yeah. I got to have a guy that wants to beat your brains out, but he's got to contain it. And so I'm going to tell you, the one thing that Jackie Robinson did that's beyond belief was control himself under the pressure that he was in every game, on the road or at home. He was under tremendous pressure, and guys tested him. There's a lot of stories about him being thrown at or stepped on at first base, and guys tempted him. They wanted him to fight. They tried to make him fight. And the strongest thing that Jackie Robinson did, and there's no history any place, written, filmed, spoken, where he ever fought. Mm-hmm. In a parking lot, a restaurant, in any setting. Robinson never. Now he was verbal. He got strong with his voice and his cause. Once he got established, he was very outspoken. But physically, to accost somebody or return a challenge to somebody never happened. And to me, Mr. Rickey was able to instill in Jackie, you've got to want to fight, but you can't do it.
Right.
And Jackie proved that he could contain himself.
I don't know about you, Joe, but so Saturday they had the Jackie Robinson Day, and so where everybody wore the number 42, which to me is one of the best days in Major League Baseball during the season.
Oh, I love it.
It is one of my favorite days.
I love it.
And then MLB Network on Sunday did a show called Letters to Jackie. I don't know if you've ever seen that. I highly recommend it.
I don't think I have, no.
And it talks about, some of the letters during that time that Jackie had got. I mean, there was a lot of hate mail.
Of course.
I mean, a lot of death threats, but compared to all the supportive mail, and so it has, Jackie or his wife and his kids reading some of it, and it's really touching.
Yeah.
Even in today's game, you've got a lack of African American ball players,
Definitely.
especially in leadership positions, managerial roles, coaches roles. You don't see
front
a lot of
office
it.
and stuff like that. It's
And,
pretty...
and Major League Baseball is doing a fairly decent job of working the inner cities on getting
the RBI program
right.
and things like that.
I just think that there's just so much to do for a kid these days, but the impact that Jackie has had is amazing. And as I get older and as I do more of these and hear more of Carl and talking about him, it blows me away. It blows me away. Number one, that you didn't have, you had some great athletes before him that never got the shot.
Of course. And you got guys like
people like Johnny Wilson.
You got guys like Satchel Paige that only had a season or two in the majors because they were at the end of their careers by the time.
So, there's a lot of talk about Jackie, but you don't hear a lot of talk about Branch Rickey on why he decided to do this. What made him, in a world that they were living at the time,
mm-hmm.
Why did he decide that all of a sudden there needs to be a black Major League Baseball player?
Well, of course, if you know the real history of Mr. Rickey, you got to know that in 1904 he was coaching a team at Ohio Wesleyan.
Mm-hmm.
He was a young guy coaching a baseball team. I think he was an assistant baseball coach, but he took a team to play Notre Dame. And when they were checking in at the hotel in South Bend, Indiana, at Notre Dame, the clerk noticed that he had a black kid in his group. His name was Charles Thomas, and he was a catcher for Rickey on this team, and he was a star player. Well, the room clerk said we can't accommodate him. Now, do you know that story? That was the embryo when Mr. Rickey saw. He finally got the manager to let Charles Thomas stay in his own room with Mr. Rickey. They got a rollaway bed and put it in the room. And this is Mr. Rickey's own story. He said Charles Thomas, after going through that experience, he saw him sit on the cot and look at his arms and scratch his arms and his hands and say, "Why do I have to be black?"
Wow.
And Mr. Rickey, I know, must have been so impacted as a young man that he must have sworn to himself that someday in some place, when the time is right, I'm going to challenge this in America. And then time passed. He went to the Cardinals, as an owner, general manager. That was not a good setting. World War II came along, and the military was segregated and so forth. In fact, Jackie was a captain in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the end of the war, and Truman was president, in about 1945 or 6, he demilitarized. He desegregated the military, and then Mr. Rickey, by that time, was in Brooklyn. Now, Mr. Rickey must have read these signs and said, this must be the time. The military has now been desegregated. Brooklyn is an ethnic mixed community. We're rebuilding after the war. There's a great spirit in America. Now, this is all speculation, but knowing Mr. Rickey as I did, I think he put everything together and said, the bell just went off. But if you read a book that's brand new by Ed Henry is a journalist, but he's on Fox News mostly he's an interviewer and a very bright young man. Handsome kid, young man. I call him a kid. He probably might be 40 years old. Anyway, he wrote a book in which he features a part of this Robinson story that's never been told. But it's one I've always personally felt like was there, but it just, politically correctness just kind of kept it hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the story. Jackie was raised by a strong Christian mother. Mr. Rickey was raised by a strong Christian mother. And Mr. Rickey used to always mention his mother and the promise that he made that he would not abandon his faith when he went into this rough business of baseball. Now, when Jackie became the final selection, and Mr. Rickey interviewed Jackie at that famous session when he brought him to fever pitch by screaming at him what what he's going to hear from the stands and the other dugouts. He had Jackie at a fever pitch, and he asked him, he said, "You can whip anybody on the field, but are you strong enough not to fight?" And then he read to him the parable of turn the other cheek. And he knew, and I believe, that the spiritual connection with Mr. Ricky and Jackie through both their mothers had an impact on how they could play out this huge challenge that they faced of breaking the color barrier. And they omitted that in the movie 42. Mm-hmm. It was not shown in the movie 42. And Ed Henry has developed a marvelous view of Ricky and Robinson from their spiritual depth. And it's an excellent book. It's brand new. It's called 42 Faith. And if you want to get a perspective, it's not been touched before. It's been circled around. It's been vaguely referred to. Everybody knew Mr. Ricky was a Christian. They almost made fun of him being in baseball and being a man of the faith. But if you'll read the book by Ed Henry, you'll read a fresh approach and really an in-depth part of the story of how did Ricky and Robinson, how did they blend so strongly that they two men could face segregation in America that was so entrenched at that time. Could they do it just because they were just two nice guys? No, it went much deeper than that. And I think Ed Henry has really laid it out in a very believable way. It'll probably get its critics, but there's a point in there where Mr. Ricky didn't know if he could go through with signing Robinson or not. He worried it would hurt the franchise, maybe. It might hurt baseball. It would certainly give him a bad reputation if it failed. And he was very much on the fence about whether he brought it up to this point. He had Jackie. He knew Jackie, but he hadn't signed him yet. And once he signed him, he made the commitment that he was going to go through with it. Well, it's a very, very poignant moment in this book, how Mr. Ricky came to the final moment in his life. I'm going to sign Robinson. I'm going to do it. It's never been touched from that perspective.
We're going to have to check that out. Going to have to look up Ed up and try to get him on. It amazes me. I grew up, in a military family, and so, I grew up with kids from all different races. Sure. And so, but I also grew up in Idaho too, and Idaho was pretty
old school.
Pretty old school. And I still, it just blows my mind on just how it used to be.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it, on where we were. And I think the Jackie Robinson story, you've seen 42.
Of course.
And for what that man did, and it wasn't easy.
No.
The stuff that he had to go through, I don't know if I could have ever gone a couple of years without not fighting.
Well, and as ugly as they made it look in the movie, it was 100 times worse.
Absolutely.
It was 1,000 times worse in real life. And it was bad, but that was probably a censored version of what he actually was experiencing. It's incredible to think about.
Let's talk a little bit about. So we know Jackie Robinson, the baseball player. Let's talk a little bit about the man outside of the game. And you were friends with Jackie. What was Jackie like away from the ballpark?
Jackie was, number one, he was genuine. There was no facade about Jackie. He was who he was. He didn't apologize for it. He was proud of who he was. He had humility, even though he was brash when he got into the Civil Rights Act. He took a lot of exceptions to things he felt were wrong. There's a story that's never been written about. I put it in my book, What I Learned from Jackie Robinson. In 1955, Pee Wee Reese was our captain and most popular player in Brooklyn. But he turned 30 years old in the middle of 1955. So they had a birthday party for Pee Wee one night at Ebbets Field, and we're playing the Phillies. And so there's been a lot of promotion about having a celebration for Pee Wee's birthday. So at the fifth inning of the game between the Phillies, a night game, they stopped everything, and they rolled out all the accolades, Pee Wee. And they had the telegrams from the President Eisenhower. MacArthur sent a telegram. Harriman was the governor of New York. All this, and then they rolled out the automobiles, and they gave Pee Wee a car. Well, everybody was just thrilled. They turned the lights down, and everybody lit a match, and they sang "Happy Birthday" to Pee Wee. It was really a touching moment. Everybody just loved Pee Wee Reese. So anyway, now the game was over. Pee Wee got 2 hits. We beat the Phillies. It was a perfect night. But we go in the clubhouse, and it was now known that during the time the lights were down, the ground crew at Evans Field, who they knew Pee Wee, we knew all those guys that worked on the ground crew, but the ground crew wanted to pay their tribute to the little colonel from Louisville, Kentucky. So when the lights were down, they went up on the roof of Evans Field where they had 8 pennants waving for the 8 National League teams. They took the pennants down and rolled up a small Confederate flag to commemorate Pee Wee's Southern birth, and he'd been a Southern gentleman and so forth. And my gosh, when Jackie saw what they had done in the clubhouse after the game, he was bouncing off the walls. I mean, he got up on his stool in front of his locker, and he was berating who let this Jim Crow back in the ballpark. I thought we chased that guy out. Well, he was irate about those Confederate flags. Now, the writers weren't in there, and Pee Wee's locker was not far from Jackie's, and Duke's was right across from Jackie's. But Duke and Clem Labine and Ralph Branca and I kind of walked over to Jackie and in a very calm manner said, "Hey, Jack, this has nothing to do with anything except the love pouring out for Pee Wee." And, you know, Jackie's face expression changed. His voice got softer. He said, "You guys are right." And that never got out of the clubhouse.
Wow.
But that was an incident when Jackie really let it all out about the Confederate flags. But it was a story that didn't need to be out.
Right.
But the credit for Jackie was that he saw it one way, and then when he realized, oh, this really had nothing to do in that direction at all. Jackie's smart and intelligent, and he also, as you know, respected Pee Wee a great deal. So the whole incident was over, but that never got out in the paper because the writers weren't in there,
right?
And it died in the clubhouse right where it should have stayed.
Well, I've never heard that story. That's the first I've heard, Brian. You've heard as well. Yeah, no, you know, he was a special man. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You know, to do what he had to do to make it, I mean, there was no doubt that he was a hell of an athlete. There was no doubt that he was a world-class baseball player.
And the ability to tune it out.
But as a person, to deal with what he had to do and how he did it, there's no doubt
some years passed, and I was at a fantasy camp with the Dodgers, and I got a phone call, and it was from the ESPN. They were getting ready to put on the ESPY Awards, and they were going to honor Jackie, and they wanted Pee Wee to come and be one of the people to honor him, but Pee Wee was quite ill. He'd had lung cancer, and so Rachel said, well, why don't you get Erskine? He's a good buddy of Jackie's. So they sent me to New York, to Radio City for the ESPY Awards, and the director told me before we went on, please think of a good story you can tell about how competitive Jackie Robinson was. So we did a thing on the stage. My turn came up, and so I said, I got the story. And here's the story. We're playing the Giants on May 12, 1956. It was an afternoon game at Evans Field, and it was Game of the Week, broadcast by Dizzy Dean and Buddy Blattner. So I had an arm trouble, And so I came to the ballpark with Pee Wee and Duke. We rode from Bay Ridge together, and we walked in the clubhouse, and there's a newspaper open on the trunk. And I may have told you this story before, but anyway, the newspaper had headlines. The Dodgers are over the hill. The sub-headline said, Jackie Robinson's too old, Campanella's done, and Erskine can't win with the garbage he's throwing. Well, I didn't need that because I was already a little tense about my shoulder. But anyway, the game starts, and in the third and fourth inning, Mays comes up for the second time, and he hits a bullet, I mean a shot, past third base, except Jackie's playing third and as quick as a cat. And even though he was older, he's gray a little bit and a little heavy, he made a fantastic play on this pickup of the smash by Mays. Sure base hit, but he took it away from Willie, threw him out at first base. And when I got Alan Dark out to end the game, I pitched a no-hitter against the Giants. And Campanella had rushed to the mound. Jackie rushed to the mound. We all shook hands, and then Jackie turned and went back to the third base side. And the Giants bench was on the third baseline, and Tom Sheehan, the chief scout for the Giants, was seated right by the dugout. He's the guy that quoted in the paper that Jackie's too old, Campy's done, Erskine can't win. And he ran right over to there, and Jackie had that clipping in his uniform hip pocket. He pulled out that clipping. He waved it at Sheehan and the Giant bench and said, "How do you like that garbage?" I said, God's truth. I said, a true story. And here's the irony or the poetic justice. Campanella caught the no-hitter. Jackie saved the no-hitter. I pitched the no-hitter. The three guys he singled out. Wow. You talk about stuffing it down the Giants' throat. Jackie went right over with that clipping and said, "How do you like that garbage?" I thought that was the most poetic justice event I'd ever witnessed.
Oh, definitely. No.
Once again, Mr. Carl Erskine on the phone and talking about Jackie Robinson today as we celebrate Jackie Robinson Day a week late. And, you know, as I get older, this is it's one of the best days in baseball for me. You know, to see everybody wear that number 42 and
all the ceremonies and everything.
All the ceremonies, and you know, special person. And Branch Rickey picked the right guy at the right time.
Yeah,
I mean, there is no doubt.
One last comment. Mr. Rickey does not get any credit for this, and yet it was the most significant thing, most unselfish act I think ever happened in Major League Baseball.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
Now listen to what happened. Here's what happened. Mr. Rickey had a list, and the second guy on the list was a guy named Larry Doby. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Rickey was so wise that he was willing to give up Doby because he called Bill Veck over at Cleveland and said, "We should take Larry Doby so that both legs will be integrated about the same time." Now think about that. Think if one leg had black players and one leg did not. That would only exaggerate and just throw flames on the segregation thing.
Right.
But Mr. Rickey was so wise, he gave up a Hall of Famer in Dovey, so both legs could be integrated about the same time.
Wow.
And so there was never any difference between the two legs in terms of segregation. That was the most unselfish thing. He gets no credit for that. But it was one of the wisest things anybody could do to promote the idea that civil rights is done. We're Americans, and that's the way baseball depicts itself. We're total. And I always thought Mr. Rickey, if we'd had that third outfielder with Duke Snyder and Carl Furillo and Larry Doby, I'd have all those World Series rings instead of Yogi.
Yeah, that's very possibly true. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, do you happen to have your harmonica hand nearby?
No, I do not.
Oh man. Well, Carl's a harmonica player, and so Carl played last time for us. But Carl, you know, it's always great having you on the show. We love talking about the history and and the connections with those great Dodger teams, and baseball history. And we love, like I said, we love having you on, and we look forward to the next time we get you on.
Fine, Norm. Thank you. Well, I just turned 90 years old in December. It's hard for me to imagine all those things happened to me, playing with those great teams, those great players. And we were all buddies. We all got raised our kids together, and we were very close. Duke Snyder was my roommate for 10 seasons. We were just like brothers. We just very close. And Jackie and I did a lot of schools, a lot of youth things off the field together. And Fort Wayne, Indiana has a program called Wildcat Baseball. Mm-hmm. And Jackie and I helped to set that up over 50 years ago. And there's over 4 to 5,000 kids in the city parks in Fort Wayne. And the program's still going. So Jackie and I had some really good experiences together off the field. So it's hard for me to look back and say, did that really happen?
You've lived a blessed life.
You got that right.
And I'll tell you, like I said, you are a history lesson, and we love having you on. And so next time we have you on, let's talk a little more about Duke.
Oh, yeah, very fine. Well, Duke was one of the greats.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe Tommy Lasorda might come up.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you played with
absolutely.
him. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, Carl's got some stories, and and that's what I like Clubhouse Chatter is reaching out to the older guys, and you've got stories that need to be heard and need to be told, because a lot of our younger generation, they've never heard these stories. And so
I knew Tommy in minor leagues, and Tommy, he did all the dirty jobs, low minor leagues, no pay, riding the lousy buses, flea bag hotels. He did all that stuff after he quit as a pitcher. And there's a great story about Tommy. His kid came to him in the low minor leagues one day, and he says, "Hey, Skipper, I turned my ankle. Do we have a whirlpool?" And Tommy said, "Whirlpool? Are you kidding?" "Oh, really? Yeah, we do. Go in the crapper and put your foot in the bowl and flush it. That's our whirlpool."
I've heard that story before, and it cracks me up every time.
Oh, that's funny.
And that's Tommy. Tommy
didn't sugarcoat.
You know what? I've got some Tommy stories. And so, hey, once again, Mr. Carl Erskine. Carl, thank you for coming on, and let's do this again soon, and we'll talk about Duke.
Take care.
All right, have a good afternoon.
Nice
Thank you.
talking to you, Carl.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. Once again, the legendary Carl Erskine.
Man.
Brian, how many times have we had him on the show?
God, is this 3 now we've had Carl?
More than that. 5 or 6.
Has it been that many?
Oh, yeah.
God, Carl's great. He's fun to talk to. He's even fun to get a baseball from, signed and everything.
One of the best signers you'll ever meet, by the way. If you have baseball cards, you can send them to him. He will sign.
Well, He's signed it.
Best.
He signed it with the Dodgers, his years, his World Series K record, 14 versus the Yankees in 53. No-hit the Cubs, no-hit the Giants, National League leader. The guy wrote everything on the ball, and so it's pretty awesome.
I tell you, for the first few times I'd get Carl Erskine on, dude, I'd get these chills. Mm-hmm. Now I'm beyond that because I've talked to him so much now.
Yeah.
But, some of those stories, though, he told a couple stories that I've never heard before today. And, man, what a legend. Yeah, he's not in the Hall of Fame, but those Dodger teams that he played for, Jackie Robinson, Duke, Campanella, Pee Wee Reese, Koufax, Tommy Lasorda.
That's what I'm saying. I was looking at...
it's amazing. The Boys of Summer.
Mm-hmm. Boys of Summer.
Back when baseball...
was the focal point.
Oh, man, it's so different now. It's so different now.
Well, that's the thing about, with Jackie Robinson, he broke the barrier almost 50 years before I was born.
It's crazy.
And I still know, and everyone since then knows his name.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's carried on. His name will carry on forever in America, I think, just because he did something so instrumental in the progress of our country, and it was in the form of playing baseball.
And this is and that's it. This is more than a baseball thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I teach my 8-year-olds that are playing baseball for me, I give them history lessons, and this is something that we talk about. We talk about Jackie Robinson and what Jackie means. They'll ask what number 42 means. I'll tell them.
Yeah.
I'll wear a hat to a specific practice and just for that purpose. Mm-hmm. And, I give, whoever wears number 42, I always hand that number out last usually, and whoever gets it, I explain to them
give them a little...
the significance of this number. Mm-hmm. I said, now that you're wearing this number, you have to, you've got to give everything.
You got to live, yeah.
You've got to live up to wearing this number. Mm-hmm. And, man, it's awesome. Brian, did you ever watch that, the Letters to Jackie? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, pretty impressive stuff. At first, you're like, is it something you really want to hear about? Almost ashamed of.
Was it?
It's an ugly past.
Was it a lot of the bad stuff?
Oh yeah. It was everything. It was everything. But it was so powerful, and to see where we are now compared to where it was, it was very impressive.
So now let's end with this.
Okay.
So Roberto Clemente. Mm-hmm. Do you think Major League Baseball should retire the number 21 now?
I think they should, if they're going to do it for Clemente. He's one of those guys that everything ended for him so abruptly because of that tragic accident. He was flying down. Where was he?
Nicaragua.
He was flying down to Nicaragua to
because
go help.
An earthquake. Yep.
Go help aid. And the plane crashed, and that was it. And he was another one of those guys that just led by example. Always was charitable. Always was trying to help out. And
he was, you could almost say that he was the Jackie Robinson for Latino baseball.
I would say so.
I would
Brian,
say so. What do you think?
I agree. I think he was. I think he's a guy we should honor, and what he did for baseball and what he did for really our country.
I agree. I think the number 21 should be retired. Now, with that said, the Miami Marlins are retiring Jose Fernandez's jersey. They're also putting up a statue. Brian and I, we've had this discussion. So here's my deal.
Is it because of the terms of what happened during the accident?
And how long did he play?
He played 3 years.
Right.
Yes, he was an elite pitcher in his 3 years. As for Hall of Fame status, stuff like that, absolutely not. My stand on it is Jose Fernandez died in a selfish act by being loaded.
Yeah.
And killed a couple of his buddies.
They say he wasn't. Was he?
He was on. He had cocaine in the system.
Well, was he manning the boat though?
They're not 100% sure, but they say yes.
I know there were drugs and alcohol in his system. They showed that. The thing is, and he was 23, 22, something like that. I don't think that if he were not Cuban, because he's from Cuba, right?
He was Cuban, yeah.
If he wasn't Cuban, I don't think the news of what was in his system would have come out. Honestly, I think that there's an ongoing theme throughout media of kind of spreading the dirt, airing the dirty laundry with foreign players and with people that
Very
have a riskier reputation to kind of keep that nationalism, that American. It strengthens us by putting them down in a way, but I don't think that. If Derek Jeter had died in a tragic accident
it would have been a different
with cocaine
story.
In his system, I don't think there would be news that was cocaine in his system.
I don't think the media, though, is getting together and saying, hey, we're going to do this and we're not going to do this to certain players. It's not, not one big conspiracy.
No, it's not a conspiracy, but I think it's something that unintentionally or subconsciously just kind of, if it was someone that they had cared more about on a national pride sort of level, it may not.
If Jeter has cocaine, I think we report on it big time.
Sure.
I think if Brady has it, I think anybody like that. A-Rod, if he has that, we're going to report on it.
A-Rod's a different story.
Well, yeah, but I think you're going to report on it. I think you have to. And the guy, going back to your thing of the statue.
No.
Are the Miami Marlins
the statue's a bit far.
Are they trying to just grasp onto something? They're so new.
Think so.
Throw a Piazza statue up there if you do anything.
Never played a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well,
No, I don't think Jersey should be retired, nor should he get a statue. You find a different way to honor him.
Do we do that with people who have died, though? I mean, I see that in just other aspects out of baseball.
Sometimes.
Somebody dies and like, oh my gosh, they were such a great person. Well, maybe they weren't. And do we just overlook a lot of things when people die? Even especially young age?
Certainly. I think that's part of it, and I think that's why he's. They were talking about giving him the Cy Young Award.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, hold on. He didn't play it. It's
he didn't win it.
He didn't play a full season, and
to be honest, if I don't think Jose would have wanted the Cy Young because he didn't earn it.
Yeah.
You're a competitive athlete. You don't want the back door to something.
No, and it's very sad that he's died. But
it is.
But the consequences that led to it, or the circumstances that led to it, were his own actions, and there's no getting around that.
All right, hey, let's have a little fun. All right, so we're gonna go.
We've been having fun all day.
Well, I know that.
Enough talk about death and cocaine, though. Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, we talked about movies. So, Joe, I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but
a little bit of everything.
We're gonna go
Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake,
except those guys. Okay. Yeah. Except the Justins.
Glad to hear that.
We're gonna go. Let's go. 80s music. Okay, and so here we go.
Joe's like going, oh crap.
Okay, that's about 10 years before I was born.
That's okay. So, all right. So, would you feel more comfortable with 90s music?
Probably.
All right, here we go. 90s music.
But 90s music sucks.
Oh, sorry. Come on. Hey.
So, 90s music. So, let's go, I don't know, five. They don't have to be like your 5 top songs, but
were there 5 good songs in the 90s?
No, there was more than 5 good songs, dude. You got the whole Nirvana.
Well, yeah. Thank you for reminding me of Nirvana, because otherwise I was just going to list a bunch of hip hop.
Speaking of dead, and probably celebrated too much.
All right,
favorite music from the 90s. Well, I'll admit I love Dr. Dre's music.
Okay.
It was kind of, I mean, his musical talent, his ability as a producer always kind of impressed me. Ice Cube was another big guy. I mean, I listened to a lot of hip hop, Bay Area stuff, kind of Mac Dre, things like that. So probably not what you were expecting. Of course, some Nirvana. I definitely dig on Nirvana.
All right, so give us a song.
A song by who? Anybody?
Oh yeah, we're going songs.
All right. Well, with Nirvana, I'll go probably Tourette's.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's like a good minute 20 little riff.
Absolutely.
That most people don't even know about that one, but the words aren't even legible, but you figure it out, that's
Man, Joe's setting the bar high, Brian.
If you're talking 90s music, I take that back. There was some good music in the 90s.
There's a lot of good music.
One good artist in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Garth Brooks.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
I got friends, friends.
Friends in low places.
Low places. There you go.
All right, so we're going to stick with good music. And so I'm going to throw out my 90s staple. And Brian is like rolling his head already. Eyes already. And that is Aqua Barbie Girl.
You always say that.
I know. I do. That's
when you were
that's a joke.
When he was in Lancaster. No, sorry.
That is like I love that song. I have that song probably in 5 or 6 different languages.
Really?
Dude, totally love that song. Walk up song. That could be possibly be one of my walk up songs.
That would be your walk up song?
One of them, absolutely.
Oh man, walk-up songs. There's a lot of those. They kind of change them up all the time.
One more time around. All right, Joe. What do you got?
Another song. Let's go with something by Dr. Dre. We'll go with Nothing But a G Thing.
Good one.
Pretty
Brian's
smooth.
Cheating.
No, I'm not cheating.
Yeah, look over here.
It's hard. I mean, come on. Britney Spears.
Okay.
Baby, One More Time. That's my walk-up song, by the way.
Wow.
So we're gonna go with worse songs now?
No.
Ouch.
So I'm going to go with something that I've really been listening to a lot of lately. And
TLC?
And that's Somebody to Shove by Soul Asylum.
I
don't know if I've heard that one.
I get an from
It's
Brian.
okay. It's okay. It's a good song. It's okay.
Hey,
It's okay. It's about right.
Once again, we are Clubhouse Chatter. That is Brian Erickson, the producer. Without him, man, I don't know where I'd be. And Norm, and then Joe Piazza coming in. Thanks for coming in again, Joe.
Oh, thanks for having me, Norm.
And so this is fun. Hey, we'll be back next week. Are we back next week, Brian? Joe, we back next week? Are
We're
you
back.
up?
I'm here if you're here.
All right. So
right.
Joe be in studio with us. Hey, Tony Turcato. Hey, once again, we like to have a good time, and I think we had some great guests today. Carl Erskine.
Yeah.
Randall
about-
Thompson and JJ. JJ stole the show.
JJ was a blast. Yeah.
I just got a text from him saying, "Hey, thanks for having me," and he goes, "I'm dead serious about getting together in St. Paul."
Excellent.
And
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we are Clubhouse Chatter. We are sponsored by baseballisms.com. If you like the 42 hat I am wearing, Jackie Robinson, they have it. Baseballisms.com. We are also sponsored by Dwayne over at Northwest Independent Baseball League. Check them out, nwibl.org. Baseballdudes.com. Chris Gazelle. To be the best, you must train like the best. Mitch Canham, building an athlete sports education based by pros. And his dad, Mark Canham, MDM Designs, does our shirts for us. We stream live every time we stream live. YamhillToday.com. And you can find us on Twitter, Clubhouse Chatter 1T. Hey, if you have an idea for a show, shoot me an email, normo18@gmail.com. Brian's all mixed up. And so, hey, just do a search, Clubhouse Chatter. You will find us, YouTube. Got some great shows out there. Hey, we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
All right.